For 7 long years, through scorching summers and freezing winters, he waited. Every single day, Max sat on the same worn patch of pavement, staring down the road as if expecting someone to return. Someone who never came back. His fur, once golden and shining, had turned dull, matted with dust and rain. His ribs pressed against his skin, hunger gnawing at his belly. But he never moved. He never left. Because Max was waiting for him. Daniel Carter, his owner. His world. The man who had once loved him, played with him, held him close, and then vanished without a trace. People in town had grown used to the sight of Max sitting outside the old gas station, silent, patient, unwavering. Children passing by would whisper, "That's the dog who's waiting for his owner." Teenagers would take pictures of him, posting them online with captions like, "The most loyal dog in the world." Old Man Henry, the newspaper stand owner, would shake his head every morning and mutter, "Poor soul, still waiting." But no one knew the truth. No one knew what really happened to Daniel Carter. Some said he moved away, others whispered of something darker. An accident, a disappearance, something no one wanted to talk about. And yet, Max still believed, still hoped. Through rainstorms, when the water soaked his fur and chilled him to the bone, he waited. Through heat waves, when the pavement burned his paws, he waited. Through lonely nights, when the only sound was the distant hum of cars and the occasional hoot of an owl, he waited. One by one, people stopped caring. At first they brought him food, leftovers from their dinners, the occasional sandwich, a cup of water. But as the years passed, the gifts grew fewer. People moved on, but Max didn't, because somewhere, deep in his heart, he knew Daniel would come back. He had to. And then, on a stormy afternoon, when the rain poured down in heavy sheets, drenching the roads, flooding the gutters, someone stopped. A woman. She stood under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, watching him. Her name? Lisa Reynolds, a journalist. And she had just stumbled upon the story of a lifetime. Lisa Reynolds couldn't look away. She had covered countless human interest stories, rescue animals, abandoned pets, acts of loyalty, but nothing like this. A dog, waiting 7 years for someone who was never coming back. It felt like something out of a fairy tale, except this was real. Her hands trembled as she lifted her camera, snapping a few shots. Click, click. She crouched down, lowering her voice. "Hey buddy," she murmured. Max didn't move. He just stared down the road, ignoring the rain, ignoring the world. Lisa's gut twisted. Why? Why this spot? Why this dog? And most of all, why was no one talking about it? She pulled out her phone, searching the name Daniel Carter. Nothing. No news articles, no missing person reports, no clues, just emptiness. It didn't make sense. A man vanishes and his dog waits 7 years, yet no one seems to remember? Something wasn't right. Lisa turned to the old newspaper stand. Old Man Henry. If anyone knew the truth, it was him. She hurried across the street, dodging puddles, rain soaking her coat. The bell jingled as she stepped inside. The old man barely glanced up, setting down his coffee. "You're not from around here?" Lisa pulled off her wet scarf. "Tell me about the dog." Henry's eyes flickered. Silence. Then, "You should leave that alone." Lisa's pulse quickened. "Why? What happened to his owner?" Henry exhaled, shaking his head. "Not my story to tell." Lisa clenched her fists. She knew that look. A man who knew something. A man who was hiding something. And then, a voice from the doorway. "He ain't coming back." Lisa spun around. A woman, mid-50s, sunken eyes, a cigarette between her fingers. She stepped forward, looking past Lisa, straight at Max. "That dog's been waiting a long time, but he's waiting for a ghost." Lisa's breath caught. A ghost? What really happened to Daniel Carter? And why was everyone afraid to talk about it? Lisa's mind raced. A ghost? What did she mean? She studied the woman, weathered face, tired eyes, someone who had seen things. Lisa took a slow step forward. "What happened to Daniel Carter?" The woman's lips pressed into a thin line, a long drag of the cigarette. Then, "You won't find him." Lisa's pulse spiked. "Because he's dead?" The woman exhaled, smoke curling between them. "Because no one wants him to be found." Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. A man goes missing, his dog never stops waiting, and the whole town pretends he never existed? Something wasn't adding up. She turned back to Henry. The old man was rigid, staring into his coffee as if it might swallow him whole. Lisa stepped closer. "What are you telling me?" His jaw tightened. A long, agonizing silence. Then, a whisper. "People who ask too many questions don't always like the answers." Lisa's breath caught. Henry's hand trembled around his mug. Fear. Not sadness. Not grief. Actual fear. Lisa leaned in, lowered her voice. Did someone make him disappear? Henry's eye twitched. For a fraction of a second, just 1 second, Lisa saw it. The truth. Someone knew what happened to Daniel Carter, and someone didn't want it getting out. Lisa swallowed hard. She turned back to the window, back to Max, still sitting, still waiting. 7 years. 7 years of silence. 7 years of no answers. The question pounded in her head like a war drum. What happened that night, and why was Max the only one who still cared? Lisa's throat felt dry. She could feel it. A truth just out of reach. A truth no one wanted her to find. Henry's fingers tightened around his coffee mug. His voice was low, strained. You should go home, miss. Lisa's jaw clenched. I can't. She turned back to the window. Max was still there, still waiting. For 7 years. If Lisa walked away now, she'd be doing what the whole town had already done, and she couldn't. She wouldn't. She exhaled sharply. Tell me what happened to Daniel Carter. Silence. Henry's gaze flicked to the woman with the cigarette. A heavy exchange. A choice. Finally, Henry sighed. 7 years ago, Daniel Carter went into those woods. Lisa's heart pounded. And? Henry's voice dropped to almost a whisper. And he never came back. Lisa's skin prickled. The woods. Every small town had a story about the woods. The place where people got lost, where they vanished. Where things happened that no one wanted to talk about. She took a step closer. Why did he go in? Henry's mouth tightened. Lisa could see it. Hesitation. Fear. Then he spoke. Because someone told him to. Lisa's stomach dropped. Told him to? This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a man who wandered off. Someone led him there. Someone wanted him gone. Lisa felt a pulse of dread creep up her spine. Her voice came out quieter now. Who? Henry didn't answer, didn't blink, didn't breathe. The woman with the cigarette stubbed it out. Lisa's heart hammered. She turned toward the window, toward Max, his golden fur dripping from the rain, his tail still, his eyes waiting. A cold realization settled over her. Max knew. Max was waiting. Because Max had seen everything. Lisa's hands clenched into fists. If no one in this town would speak, then she would follow the only witness left. Her gaze locked on Max. It was time to go into the woods. Lisa's breath came fast. The trees loomed overhead, twisting shadows against the moonlight. Max padded ahead, his golden fur damp, his tail low. He knew the way. A soft whine? Hesitation. Then he keeps going. Lisa swallowed hard. She should be afraid. But she couldn't turn back now. Not when she was this close. Not when she was about to uncover why Daniel Carter never came back. And then, Max stopped. Dead still, his ears perked, a single low growl rumbled from his chest. Lisa's stomach nodded. She followed his gaze, and there it was, a cabin, old, abandoned, hidden. The door was slightly open, like someone had left in a hurry. Lisa's pulse pounded. She forced herself forward. 1 step, 2. Max stayed beside her. She reached the door, and froze. Scratch marks, deep, jagged, claw marks, Max's. A sharp inhalation left her lips. 7 years. 7 years of waiting, right here. Max had come back. Again and again, because this was where he lost Daniel. Lisa's hand shook as she pushed the door open. The hinges screamed. Inside, darkness, dust, silence. She stepped in, and that's when she saw it. The chair, the old rusted handcuffs still latched to the wooden arms, and next to it, a coat, faded, torn, the name tag barely visible. Lisa's breath hitched. Daniel Carter. Max let out a whimper. Lisa spun. Something moved. A shadow. Someone was here. Her heart slammed against her ribs, a voice low, hoarse, behind her. You shouldn't have come. A single deep growl, a shaking flashlight beam, Lisa's breath shallow, uneven. Max lowers himself, ears back, teeth bared. Something moves in the shadows. A shuffle, a dragging sound. Lisa forces herself to look. On the floor, a notebook. Old, leather-bound, covered in dust. She picks it up. Her fingers tremble as she flips it open. If someone finds this, I am still alive. A name, scrawled over and over, Daniel Carter, and below it, I hear him at night, he's watching, waiting. Lisa jerks her head up, a shadow shifts behind her, watching. Max lets out a snarl,